After John Wayne Gacy was sentenced to death, many believed his story had reached its final chapter. But what happened in the years following his conviction? Was there more to uncover? And did his legacy ever truly end? Despite John Wayne Gacy's death sentence and eventual execution in 1994, the story of his crimes didn't stop there. His legacy lingers, not only in the minds of those he terrorized, but also in the ripple effects it had on criminal investigations, the victims' families, and even the way society views serial killers. Gacy's case redefined how we understand the nature of evil, making it more chilling than ever before. But as we dig deeper into his final years and aftermath, we'll explore the continued mystery surrounding Gacy's crimes, the lasting trauma, and the complex emotional journey that still haunts those affected. Gacy was executed on May 10, 1994, by lethal injection, bringing an official end to the criminal case that had haunted Illinois for over a decade. But for the families of Gacy's victims, the journey to find closure was far from over. Although justice had been served in the courtroom, the emotional wounds left behind were still fresh. Following Gacy's execution, new developments continued to emerge. In the years that followed, investigators and forensic specialists revisited his case, re-examining the evidence and wondering if there were more secrets buried beneath the surface. Questions about whether Gacy had more victims than the 33 he was convicted of lingered for decades. Could there have been more bodies that were never discovered? Could there have been accomplices? Or was Gacy truly working alone? As experts and criminologists tried to piece together the full extent of Gacy's life, they also grappled with the psychological toll his crimes had on those involved. Law enforcement officers who had worked the case struggled with the grotesque details of the discovery, and the families of the victims tried to move on while still carrying the scars of Gacy's atrocities. Did Gacy leave behind more victims? Even after his execution, the mystery of Gacy's full body count remains a question. Investigators and some true crime enthusiasts believe Gacy's travels, his interaction with other potential victims, and his deep connections to the community could have led to more victims that were never uncovered. Could there be hidden victims whose stories are lost to time? Gacy's case left a lasting imprint on society, not only because of the brutality of his crimes, but because of the disturbing duality he represented. He was both a beloved clown and a brutal killer, someone who wore a mask to hide his true nature and lived among people who never suspected the darkness beneath the surface. This duality became a powerful part of the public's fascination with Gacy. Media coverage, documentaries, and true crime discussions only amplified the intrigue, keeping his story alive long after his death. His case has been the subject of countless books, movies, and psychological analyses, each trying to answer the age-old question, what made him do it? Part of the reason the public still remains so captivated by Gacy is because of how his actions challenge our perceptions of normalcy. He was not the stereotypical monster who lived on the fringes of society. He was someone who was trusted by his community, a seemingly normal man with a terrifying secret. His story raises unsettling questions about how evil can hide in plain sight, which keeps people coming back to examine his life, his crimes, and the psychological patterns that may have shaped him. Gacy's legacy continues to haunt both the criminal justice system and the families of his victims. What does it mean for a case to be solved when the emotional and psychological scars still run deep? And can we ever truly understand the mind of a killer who managed to hide in plain sight for so long? While Gacy's body was buried in 1994, the questions surrounding him remain unanswered. His case continues to shape how we approach criminal investigations, the way society views serial killers, and the deep emotional toll inflicted on those who were left in his wake. But is there more to Gacy's story than we know? John Wayne Gacy's chilling legacy didn't end with his execution. How did his case change the way we understand criminal profiling? And what lasting effects did his murders have on law enforcement? Despite John Wayne Gacy's death in 1994, his impact on criminal investigations and criminal psychology continues to this day. His case was one of the first to highlight the disturbing nature of serial killers hiding behind normal, even respected, facades. But Gacy wasn't just a man of mystery, he was a lesson. In this chapter, we will explore how the horror of Gacy's crimes redefined criminal profiling and law enforcement practices, and how his case continues to shape our understanding of serial killers in the modern world. John Wayne Gacy's case was groundbreaking in several ways. His ability to present himself as a well-respected member of society while secretly being a ruthless killer challenged law enforcement in ways they had never experienced before. When Gacy was finally apprehended, the full extent of his crimes shocked the world, but it also set a new precedent in how serial killers were identified and understood. One of the most significant impacts of Gacy's case was how it influenced criminal profiling. The FBI had already begun using psychological profiles to track serial killers, but Gacy's case showcased the need for deeper insight into the personality and behavior of offenders who could blend into society. The notion of the hidden monster was solidified. Serial killers who seemed like ordinary, even charming individuals, making it almost impossible to detect their criminal behavior. Experts began to look beyond the obvious signs of violence and instead focused on the psychology of killers who could hide in plain sight. Gacy's ability to be a part of his community, run a successful business, and even host charity events while also being a brutal murderer forced investigators to reimagine what they thought they knew about serial killers. His case was used as a model in criminology classes, helping to shape the criminal justice system for years to come. Law enforcement also started rethinking how they connected missing persons cases, especially when it came to young men and boys. Before Gacy, many of the missing persons cases involving young males went unnoticed, but Gacy's crimes showed how critical it was to connect these cases and look for patterns that might otherwise be overlooked. How much did Gacy's case change the way law enforcement handled future serial killer investigations? While the Gacy case had a huge impact on criminal profiling, questions remain about how much his case truly influenced investigations across the U.S. Did law enforcement take the lessons learned from Gacy and apply them to subsequent cases? Were there other killers who benefited from the lack of attention to the psychological and social factors that shaped Gacy's behavior? And how much did Gacy's ability to blend in with society blind investigators to his true nature? The public's continued fascination with Gacy is rooted in the nature of his crimes and the eerie duality he represented. He was both a charming, community-oriented businessman and a brutal, calculating killer. This contrast is what keeps people intrigued about him. How could someone so seemingly normal, even trusted, be hiding such a monstrous side? His case became a perfect storm for media fascination, with coverage that painted him as both the face of horror and an almost mythical figure of evil. However, the fascination doesn't just lie in the murders themselves, but in the deeper, more psychological aspects of his life. How did Gacy manipulate so many people into believing he was harmless? How did he stay under the radar of law enforcement for so long, even when he had been questioned multiple times about disappearances? And how did his ability to maintain this dual identity make him such a terrifying figure? Today, the term killer clown is forever associated with Gacy, but what does it mean for our understanding of serial killers? What does it say about society's inability to see the darkness that exists even in the most trusted of individuals? Gacy's case serves as a constant reminder that evil can exist behind a mask, and it forces the public to confront uncomfortable truths about the nature of crime and human behavior. John Wayne Gacy's legacy has shaped how serial killers are perceived and investigated. His case raised the bar for criminal profiling, but did it go far enough? How many Gacys are still out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered? And what more can law enforcement and society do to prevent similar tragedies from unfolding in the future? The truth behind John Wayne Gacy's horrific crimes has been revealed, but there's more to his story that still haunts us. What impact did his case have on the justice system, and how did it redefine the role of victims' families in the fight for justice? John Wayne Gacy's murders shocked the world, but his case did more than just expose the evil behind a clown mask. It set a precedent for how we understand justice, victim advocacy, and the ongoing quest for closure. In this chapter, we will explore the emotional aftermath of Gacy's crimes, focusing on the long-lasting impact it had on the victims' families, the criminal justice system, and the broader conversation about serial killers. How did Gacy's case change the way we approach victims' rights, and how did the families of the lost boys continue to seek peace in the wake of such darkness? When John Wayne Gacy was convicted of 33 murders, it was a moment of official justice. But for the families of Gacy's victims, it was just one step in their painful journey toward healing. For many, the years following Gacy's conviction were marked by a relentless quest for closure. The emotional toll of losing a loved one to such brutal violence left families with scars that would never fully heal. In the face of overwhelming grief, many survivors of Gacy's victims found themselves forced to navigate the criminal justice system, the media frenzy, and their own emotional battles. The families' emotional journeys were complicated by the fact that, while the criminal justice system convicted Gacy and ultimately executed him, the damage done to the victims' families could never be undone. The pain of losing a child, a brother, loved one, in such a senseless way left deep scars. Many of the families fought for years to ensure their loved ones weren't forgotten, that their stories would be heard, even when the world was fixated on Gacy himself. For some families, the execution of Gacy did provide a sense of finality, but others found it didn't erase the pain. They had been forced to live with the haunting reality of Gacy's crimes for so long, and while his death ended his ability to harm, the emotional scars of what happened to their loved ones never fully healed. In some cases, families became advocates for other victims of violent crimes, channeling their grief into efforts to raise awareness and prevent future tragedies. How do the families of Gacy's victims cope with the loss, and is closure ever truly attainable? The families of John Wayne Gacy's victims are still grappling with the profound impact of his crimes. For many, the concept of closure remains elusive. While Gacy's death may have brought a sense of justice, how do you reconcile the brutal, senseless loss of a loved one to a man who had been hiding in plain sight? And how do you heal from a crime that remains so haunting, so incomprehensible? The public's obsession with John Wayne Gacy was not only due to his gruesome crimes, but also the emotional resonance that comes with understanding his victims. Behind the chilling image of the killer clown were young lives with potential, who were taken before their time. This duality of Gacy, the monster who hid behind a clown mask, and the victims who were forever lost, keeps the public intrigued. The media, documentaries, and true crime discussions on Gacy's case often focus on the horror of his actions, but the real human cost is seen in the victims' families. Many documentaries and reports now make sure to include the voices of those who were left behind, the families who still struggle with the aftermath. These voices provide a poignant reminder that, while Gacy's name is infamous, the true tragedy lies in the lives lost and the enduring grief of those left behind. For years, the conversation around Gacy has revolved around the macabre details of his crimes, but there is an increasing focus on the importance of remembering the victims and acknowledging the profound effect such a loss has on the families involved. The story of John Wayne Gacy cannot be fully understood without taking into account the human cost of his actions, and this is what keeps the public's attention fixed on the case. People are drawn not just to the monster that was Gacy, but to the devastating effect his crimes had on the people who loved those he murdered. The story of John Wayne Gacy and his victims will never be fully closed. Even after his death and the justice served in the courtroom, the emotional and psychological scars remain. How did the victims' families move forward after such unimaginable loss, and what can society do to better understand the complexities of justice and victim advocacy in the wake of serial killings? What happens when a case like John Wayne Gacy's is examined through the lens of modern criminal investigations? How does his legacy continue to shape our approach to justice, serial crime prevention, and forensic psychology today? John Wayne Gacy's case was a defining moment in the history of criminal investigations, a moment that not only altered how we view serial killers, but also revolutionized forensic psychology and investigative techniques. Though Gacy's execution brought some sense of finality, the ripples of his case continue to affect the ways we approach crime today. In this chapter, we explore how the legacy of John Wayne Gacy shaped modern investigative practices, the role of forensic psychology in serial crime prevention, and how his story is still used in classrooms and courtrooms to prevent future tragedies. Gacy's case is still studied extensively by criminologists, forensic psychologists, and law enforcement agencies. One of the most significant ways his case influenced criminal investigations was in the development of behavioral profiling. At the time of Gacy's crimes, behavioral profiling was still in its infancy, and many law enforcement agencies lacked the understanding of how serial killers operate. Gacy's crimes, however, pushed criminal investigators to rethink how they approached missing person cases, and how they might spot the patterns that could indicate a serial killer in hiding. Through the work of the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit and other criminal profiling experts, Gacy's case helped shape the protocols used in the investigation of serial killers. Investigators began to study not just the crime scene details, but the psychological makeup of offenders. The signatures left by criminals, whether it be the method of killing, the victimology, or the way the crime was staged, became critical to building profiles that would help law enforcement identify perpetrators earlier. Gacy's ability to evade detection for so long demonstrated how serial killers could blend into society, making it even more important for investigators to understand the psychology of those they pursued. Furthermore, Gacy's case revealed the need for more comprehensive victim identification and investigation. After Gacy was caught, some investigators believed that the focus on young male victims in the same geographic area should have drawn more attention to Gacy earlier. Today, this is a key area in modern investigative practices, connecting missing persons cases across jurisdictions to spot serial patterns and identify potential serial offenders much sooner. The case also highlighted the role of forensic psychology in understanding the minds of serial killers. Gacy's psychological evaluation, along with his trial behavior, provided valuable insights into the mind of a killer who could operate undetected for years. Forensic psychologists study his behavior not just as a way of understanding Gacy, but as a way to predict and prevent future killers from slipping through the cracks of the system. What lessons from Gacy's case are we still learning today? Even though John Wayne Gacy's case was a significant milestone in the criminal justice system, the question remains: are we doing enough to identify serial killers before they strike again? Can modern profiling methods prevent future tragedies? Or is there still a gap in how we approach missing persons cases and patterns of criminal behavior? Despite the advancements made since Gacy's crimes, the truth is that serial killers still operate today, often in ways that are less recognizable to the public and law enforcement. So, how can we continue to evolve our methods of detection? And are there still areas we're missing that could prevent another Gacy from slipping through the cracks? The fascination with John Wayne Gacy's case hasn't just been limited to law enforcement and criminal psychologists. It remains a central point of interest for the public as well. For many, Gacy's ability to hide in plain sight, behind a mask of charm and respectability, resonates deeply. Gacy was not the stereotypical monster that people expect serial killers to be. He was a beloved member of his community, a businessman, and even a volunteer at local events. This duality, the friendly, caring clown who hid the monster inside, makes Gacy a figure that people can't forget. His case is often discussed in terms of how the public can fail to recognize the signs of a serial killer, especially when that killer fits into societal norms and expectations. People are constantly fascinated by the psychology of such killers, and Gacy's ability to blend into his community is what makes his case particularly haunting. As the world continues to watch documentaries and true crime series, Gacy's story serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that evil can hide in the most unsuspecting places. Public fascination isn't just about the gruesome details of his crimes, but about the chilling idea that someone can walk among us, playing the role of a good citizen, while carrying out horrific acts behind closed doors. John Wayne Gacy's case reshaped not just criminal investigations, but also our collective understanding of how serial killers operate. Even though Gacy was executed over 25 years ago, the questions raised by his crime still linger today. Can we ever truly understand the minds of killers like Gacy? His case continues to teach us about the gaps in our systems and the vital need for more effective tools and practices in preventing serial crimes. But as we continue to study his legacy, we must ask ourselves, what are we doing today to ensure that there will be no more Gacys in the future? In the next chapter, we'll look at the lasting impact of Gacy's case on modern law enforcement, from the introduction of advanced profiling techniques to how we now handle missing persons reports and investigate serial killers. Are we better equipped now to handle such cases? And what does the future hold for the fight against serial crime? Stay tuned, subscribe, like, and share for more videos.